Now I'd like to move to the citation for John Shrapnel. It's my great pleasure to present an absolutely positively Wellingtonian award to John for his contribution to the Wadestown community and beyond. A fellow Londoner, John is a descendant of the British Army officer General Henry Shrapnel, though we seem to have gained an L since those days, who invented, yes, the shrapnel shell. John spent time in the Royal Air Force, but the majority of his career was working in the media as a journalist, reporter, director, actor, editor and producer. Now there's a one-man show for you. John worked for the New Zealand Broadcasting Corporation and when TV started became an editor of NZBC Newsreel. His role as a reporter on Town and Around, a nightly show played on screen in New Zealand during the late 60s. Helen, you remember this? Made him a familiar face for New Zealanders. The piece John did on unlocked vehicles in the capital can still be viewed on New Zealand on screen. You must send us the link, John. He travelled the world for TV, but also always came home to Wadestown, where he's lived at his current address since 1966. Along with his wife Bron and daughters Amanda and Fiona, he's worked to support community life in Wadestown for many years. It was a discovery of broken sewerage pipes in the Nio Gorge, which led John and 11 others to found the Wadestown Residents Association in September 1970. Together they planted thousands of trees into Nio Gorge, and since then John and the Wadestown Residents Association, whom I think we have the president here tonight as well, have lobbied tirelessly on the Wadestown community's behalf. John was the association president for 25 years before he stepped down in 2010, and he's been a pivotal figure in a number of events and activities over the past 4 decades. He formed the Wadestown Coalition of Residents Associations of Wellington, the Wadestown Community Information website. I remember a lot of communication then in the 90s, and the Community Liaison Group, which meets monthly at the library, and he still chairs that. He began the Wadestown Village Fair and organised it for over 30 years, and he's the embodiment of community spirit. Since 2011, John has been involved with the Wellington City Men's Shed, which provides companionship and learning opportunities for older men in the city, whose work benefits many, many community organisations. Wellington City and John Shrapnel have not always seen eye to eye on every issue. That would be very dull, wouldn't it? But we've always been united in our passion for Wellington. A variety of opinions and the freedom to challenge governing bodies is a hallmark of democracy, and we're very glad to have community stalwarts like John. So on behalf of Wellington City Council, I'd like to thank John and declare him an absolutely positively Wellingtonian, though we might put a time limit on the speech. So come up, John.
I must admit I've been torn about what I was going to speak about here, but having heard that summation first, it clears a lot of the ground away. I can tell you lots of stories around what we've developed in Wellington, but I won't. I willingly accept this award, but not for me. I accept it for all the people that we work with. Because if you're at a committee, and the tramways people know this, it's not one man, it's a whole group of people that work together. It's community work. If I've played a role, it's been the loud voice of the Wadestown or the occasional thorn in the side of the mayor or anybody else who wasn't working as quickly as I thought they should do. I'd like to, rather than go over the history of the Residents Association, I'd like to just have a go at what Wellington is missing out in terms of the City Men's Shed. We have, around the world, we have an increasing ageing population. In the next few years, 25% of the people that you meet will be over the age of 65. What are you going to do with them? The City Men's Shed looks after those. We looked after those who've lost connection with their family, the ones who live alone in flats, probably city council flats, alone and isolated. We look after the absolutely ordinary men who retire from work and find that after 40, 50 years of work, suddenly, regardless of the skill, yes, I'm looking at you because it applies to you too. When you retire, the next day, despite what you've accomplished, you'll become a non-person. They say, no, nice guy, but past it, you know, the world's moved on. And that is a major psychological bash in the face to anybody, man or woman, to be told that they're past it. So what we do, we work together in our shed, we do work community things, we create toys and furniture for childcare centres. If you go up to the hospital, you'll see the 2 Thomas the Tank engines we just did revive for them. We work together. That helps the men. You see them come in, oh, this is a men's shed, is it? Sort of, oh, yeah. And 2 weeks later, did you see those chairs? I painted those for the kindergarten. And you've restored their self-esteem, and that is important. So that's what we do. Now, where are we missing out? We're missing out because for the past 4 years, we've been living in, or working in Maurice Clark's old building. It's an earthquake risk building. Every time we go in, we have to sign the thing to say that we accept that we are an earthquake risk building. We know we're there, it's our responsibility. It doesn't worry us, we're all old farts, we're past it. But what it does mean is that we can't invite in the public. We can't have an open day. We can't bring in all the young men that we see around who are wanting to learn skills that we have and we can teach. We can't bring them in because it's an earthquake risk building. What we need is a home. If you're thinking of another ward, may I suggest give one to Maurice Clark, because he's supported us in that building for 4 years now, rent-free, and without him we wouldn't exist. And if we don't exist, what will happen to the older people in Wellington? What will happen to all the community groups that we've been helping? Wellington will become a poorer place if we disappear. Thank you.
Well said. And I'm sure elected members, if necessary, after October, may find a little haven there as well. Sorry, take that. Excuse me, Crispian. Take those away, I think. Those away. Just check. So I'd now like to call on the members present to declare any conflicts of interest that you may have. Does anyone wish to do so? Okay, we'll now move to the confirmation of